How aliens learned to play baseball. Once upon a time, in a galaxy far, far away, on a planet called Skaladron 7, aliens known as the Skaladrots decided that they needed to study human entertainment. This civilization was technologically advanced, but had some difficulties when it came to leisure activities. Their favorite pastime of dragging asteroids from one orbit to another was not bringing the desired relaxation. Why not try something simpler, like sports? Zint, the planet's senior scientist, suggested. Sports? What's that? Real, his younger colleague who had just returned from a mission to study human music, asked. We need some kind of activity that can be done with minimal energy and maximum efficiency. Zint thought about it and soon remembered baseball, a sport that was often mentioned in Earth observations. There was a lot of information about the game on the internet, but what it was, no one knew. Let it be baseball. Zint declared. We'll start practicing tomorrow. The sequel could be made more detailed, with humorous moments like the aliens trying to learn the rules of the game, not understanding why they need to catch the ball with their hands instead of lasers, or how they decide that home running is the best way to move around the planet. The next morning, the group of Skaladrots gathered at the training field, where everything looked completely alien and incomprehensible. The field was lined with strange devices that looked like metal trees with balls that seemed to fly in the air by themselves. So, first question, Zint said, what is a ball? He looked at Rill, who was scrutinizing a strange object that looked like a giant blob of air, but hard as a rock. Is it something solid? Rill asked, clutching the ball in his fingers slightly confused. Well, yeah, replied Zint, obviously more confident than he actually was. It's not that important, the important thing is not to chew it or try to use it as a weapon. But we always use all things as weapons. Rill protested, not quite sure what to make of this strange, non-shooting object. Zint shook his head. No, Rill, that's not what baseball is about. We're playing with it, not destroying it. You're going to toss it in the air and catch it. Throw it up? Rill repeated, bewildered, shaking his head. He looked at the ball and gazed at it with a look as if it wasn't a ball but a hidden intergalactic cipher to be solved. Yeah, you just toss it up and catch it. Zint said, but seeing that his explanation wasn't having the desired effect, he added, let's start by you just standing next to this device and I'll explain it to you. Rill stood near the device that was their pad. He turned to Zint and said, why not take several of these objects at once and take them to our space storage facility? No, Rill. We have to play with them. Zint said, trying his best to squeeze Rill's alien consciousness into the framework of human sport. So, look, I toss the ball up, you have to catch it. Zint tossed the ball gently. The ball, meanwhile, began to move on a trajectory, but Rill, instead of catching it, decided it was an attack from the spaceship and began to apply his defense system. He quickly activated his shield, and as soon as the ball reached him, he sent it into the distant galaxy with a powerful beam of light. Zint watched the ball disappear over the horizon and uttered in horror, that's not how it works, Rill. Ouch, exclaimed Rill, in whom self-defense mode instantly kicked in. I thought it was an alien maneuver. I mean, we're in space. What if it's some kind of aggressive meteor? Zint was ready to give up, but decided to try explaining one more time. He tried to convince Rill that the game didn't require weapons and defense, it just required good coordination and attention. Okay, now I'll explain the rules step by step. It won't be easy, but we'll do it. Zint said, determined that one day they would learn. Over the next few weeks, the aliens practiced hard. Rill still didn't understand why the ball had to be tossed when it could simply be destroyed. But after a couple days, after a lot of experimentation and explanation, he became more and more involved in the game. Things weren't going entirely smoothly, however. When it came time for Real to try batting the ball with the bat, he suddenly realized that he couldn't hold the bat properly. "Zint, this thing doesn't want to work," he declared, trying to grip the bat, which was either too big for his fingers or too short for his skills. "You've got to hold it tighter, Real," Zint said, trying to set him up. "You need to hit the ball so it flies like a rocket." Real gave in, but instead of hitting the ball, he seemed to invite it a little. The ball flew sideways, right into the face of the scientist who was standing nearby. "Yay!" shouted Real, pleased with the result. Zint, who had been hit by the ball, looked at him with a look that could burn through metal. "Well, at least you get the idea," he said with a chuckle, lightly wiping the ball marks off his face. As the aliens began to learn the basics of baseball, the planet Skaladron 7 began to organize human matches, a new pastime on their planet. However, it was not without its surprises. The aliens often used their technology in the game, for example, to fly around the field or use gravity to hit hard, but despite the difficulties, they learned to enjoy the game, and even began teaching it to other civilizations of neighboring planets. The Skaladrots became the galaxy's famous baseball players, and soon the sport spread throughout the cosmos. Now, when Zint looks at all his accomplishments, he often laughs and remembers how he once tried to explain that the ball shouldn't disappear into another dimension. Space Baseball League. When the aliens of Skaladron 7 finally mastered baseball, they decided it was time to take the game to the next level. Zint, inspired by the team's success, proposed organizing a Galactic Baseball League, GBL, where representatives from other planets could join. "We'll be the first champions in space," Real declared, juggling the balls so fast they began to glow. "Take it easy, Real. We need to invite the other contestants first," Zint reminded him. The team sent out invitations to all the nearby planets. Responses started coming in almost immediately. The first to respond were the blob race from the planet Galatia, whose players looked like huge jelly-like creatures. Then came the robotic Electons, whose captain claimed that his team were geniuses of precise calculations and winning. A total of 10 teams registered for the tournament. The first match. The first match was to be played on Skaladron 7. The aliens had erected a giant dome over their stadium to protect it from sudden space storms and flying meteors. On match day, the stadium was filled with spectators from all corners of the galaxy. The Skaladrots faced off against the blobs from Galatia. When the game began, it was immediately clear that each race had its own characteristics. The blobs, for example, instead of kicking the ball, simply pulled it inside their bodies and then spat it out with incredible force. One time, the ball flew so far away that they had to search for it for a whole week. That's a violation of the rules. Zint was indignant, trying to explain to the blobs that their way of playing was against the spirit of baseball. "We're just using our natural characteristics," replied the blob's captain, slowly strutting around the base. After hours of arguing, it was decided to allow teams to use their unique abilities as long as it did not compromise the integrity of the balls and equipment. Unexpected problems. With each game, it became clear that the rules of baseball needed to be adapted to space realities. For example, 1. The robotic Electons sometimes hovered due to overheating, analyzing the trajectory of the ball. In one match, their captain spent so long thinking about how to hit a pitch that the spectators began to fall asleep. 2. The Graviton team from the planet Mashio used gravity fields to slow down or speed up the ball. One day, they distorted space so much that all the players were in the center of the field, piled up in a heap. 3 flying fluxers just floated in the air, catching balls before they could reach the batter. This was extremely annoying to the Skaladrots, who considered this style of play to be cheating. The final match of the tournament was between the Skaladrots and the Electrons. They chose to play on a neutral planet called Victories, a huge sphere with low gravity. The match promised to be intense. Zint gathered his team before the start and said, "Today we will show that the Skaladrots are the true champions. The main thing is don't let the robots confuse you with their calculations." The game began. The Electrons were indeed accurate, their kicks and pitches looked perfectly calibrated. But Real, who had mastered an incredible stroke with his bat, which he nicknamed the Orbit Destroyer, made a real breakthrough in the 8th inning, sending the ball into the planet's orbit. "Where's the ball?" worried the Electrons. "He's coming back," shouted the umpire as the ball, having made a complete spin around Victories, fell back onto the field right into Real's hands. It was a home run that decided the outcome of the game. After the victory, the Skaladrots became the true heroes of the galaxy. Zint was awarded the Space Sports Medal, and Real won the title of Best Kicker in Space. Baseball became so popular that it began to be broadcast to millions of planets. However, one day, during a holiday dinner, Real said thoughtfully, "Zint, what if we try to learn another Earth sport? How about soccer?" Everyone froze. "Oh no," Zint sighed. "Not that." After his success with baseball, Real's suggestion of a soccer league was more than just a joke. Within a couple of weeks, the Skaladrots had begun actively exploring a new sport that humans on Earth called soccer, or soccer, as Zint clarified after watching thousands of Earth videos. "So this is where we play with our feet?" Real asked, kicking the strange round ball incredulously. The ball, clearly offended by this treatment, flew off into a nearby wall, which it reflected off and hit Zint directly in the forehead. "Yes, with your feet, Real. But don't forget, we're not destroying the ball, we're playing with it," Zint replied irritably, rubbing his head. Teaching soccer was even more difficult than baseball. The Skaladrots had 3 major problems. 1. Body shape. Their hexagonal feet were not at all designed for kicking balls. Sometimes they hit the ball with such force that it flew into the stratosphere. And sometimes, on the contrary, they missed and kicked the air, losing their balance. 2. Gravity. Given the peculiarities of the planet Skaladron 7, the ball would either stick to the surface of the field or fly so high that it would disappear for days. Zint suggested inviting engineers from the planet Mashio to create a gravity ball stabilizer. This invention almost immediately went viral in the galaxy. 3. Rules. In his first training sessions, Real couldn't understand why you couldn't just grab the ball with your hands and run with it towards the goal. "Why, it's faster." He resented until he was penalized for another space foul. After a year of training, the Skaladrots decided to organize the first Galactic Soccer Championship. To the surprise of everyone, not only members of the Baseball League applied for it, but also completely new teams. The mutants from Oceania, 12, who played simultaneously underwater and on land. They brought their miniature lakes onto the field, creating a horrible mess. The Moving Shadows team from the planet Obscura, whose members could become invisible. Refereeing matches against them was a headache. The Giants from the planet Colossus, who had only 2 players, but each of them could take up half the field. The final game was set on the planet Gravia 3, where gravity changed every 15 minutes. The game began with a clear advantage for the Giants. Their captain, named Megazok, simply stood in the goal, spreading his massive limbs and blocking any ball the Skaladrots tried to send there. Real, after a few failed kicks, decided to employ a strategy. He noticed that one of the giants, busy juggling an asteroid, was distracted for a second. Real launched the ball upwards at an incredible angle, utilizing the diminishing gravity. The ball made several revolutions around the planet and came right back at the giant's goal. Goal! Boomed through the stadium. The giants were shocked, and Real, jumping for joy, declared, "I knew gravity was on our side." After the victory, the Skaladrots became galactic heroes once again. They were invited to be interviewed by all the space media, and Real was given the title of King of Space Soccer. Meanwhile, Zint, who was tired of the endless training and tournaments, thought about a new challenge. "Real, what do you think about basketball?" he asked one day. Real looked at him in horror. "Are you serious? Jumping again?" But there was already a new light in Zint's eyes. The galactic sport was just beginning. The end, or the continuation of the Skaladrot sporting adventures.